Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, Isha,
Yep.
you're audible.
Cool, thanks. So, hi guys, happy Republic Day. My name is Isha Kalal and I'm one of the conveners for Consult Club. Nice to meet you all virtually. So, let's begin today's session without further ado. Albert Einstein had this quote: "We can't solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them." One can simply extend it to the fact that several times you need someone else's, say, another person's brain's help to solve an issue. That pretty much sounds like consulting. What is consulting? Consulting is the practice of helping organizations or companies improve their performances by providing external expert advice on strategy, management, and operations. So, why is it a required service? Other than the fact that you need external help to solve the issues that you created or boost your performance, it helps provide one or more of the skill sets that companies might not have internally, as one company does not employ all kind of services and skill sets. Secondly, to fill resource gaps within the company with respect to manpower. Even if they have that skill set, one person cannot do the task of 10 people, and hence it is required. And finally, to bring in an third party objector. Here's a meme conveying the same stuff, but well, memes make everything better, so why not? Consultants usually work in a team, and their clients are companies. As to why people choose consulting, I believe our seniors could answer the question better. But one of the reasons is the vast and quick experience that it brings with respect to various fields and their management domain. And finally, the skills that consultants require. The list is just the surface of the ocean. However, we cover it and much more.
I'm really sorry about that. So hi guys, I'm Dashank. I'm also the convener for Consult Club. So that was a bit about consulting, but consulting at IIT Bombay. So we put particularly a STEM college. So why consulting at IIT Bombay? What consulting at IIT Bombay? So that's where Consult Club comes in. So a brief history of Consult Club. Consult Club IIT Bombay was established in 2016 with a vision to solve institute-wide problems and to develop efficient problem solvers. So there were various institute-wide problems like those of transport, eateries, administrative, or some things of the similar sort. And consulting, as Isha mentioned, is all about problem solving and then presenting your solution in an efficient manner. So from there, Consult Club has transformed, evolved, and improved into a body catering to all sorts of activities related to consulting, and from this year onwards, even for management. I'm sure all of you have heard the term management somewhere or the other, but we'll come to that in a short while. So that was about what aspect of Consult Club. But let's be honest, you might feel why are you telling us this, or what's in it for you? So coming to what Consult Club does for students of IIT Bombay. So various activities and events for students in institute, and believe me, it's not just for the consulting enthusiasts, because consulting is all about problem solving. Everyone and anyone can benefit from the activities that Consult Club conducts. So starting from boot camps, so we have summer and winter boot camps to cater to various skill sets required for consulting, and even not just for consulting, but in general for your soft skills, which will help you throughout your throughout your life. Then we have experience sharing. So like experience sharing is one of the major factors like which IIT Bombay is known for, like the senior junior relationship. So seniors share their experience about their work in this industry and how they've explored this field. So that comes under experience sharing. Then comes competitions. So there are various case competitions. I'll give a brief about what case competitions are in a while. But so there are various competitions, both conducted by Consult Club as well as which are shared through Consult Club pages and are held all over the world. Then are the knowledge sessions, which will help you build your skills and get to know more about what skills are in general required for consulting, which are more sort of very diverse as compared to a purely technical field. Then there are other exciting events to help you learn and grow. So we have various short competitions, various sessions, which are like the competitions are held through the Consult Club pages and everything. Just to confirm, am I audible, right, Isha?
Yeah, Dishank, we can
Yes,
hear
you
you.
are.
Cool.
Okay. Oh yeah, thank you. So that was about the activities for the students of the institute. As I talked about case competitions, so what is a case competition? So all of you have cleared your Olympiads, cleared JEE, the various competitions you might have attended before. So what's special about a case competition? So what a case is? A case is a simple problem statement owing to like relating to any, which can be anything and everything, as simple as, let's say, solving a particular business problem for a company, to as complex as giving an entire strategy to enter a new market. So these terms might be like very new to you or very complicated, but believe me, you need not know everything if you want to start. So case competitions is all about brainstorming on a particular aspect or a particular problem statement that is given to you. And as in the previous competition that you might have attended, there might be a proper right answer to a question, but here there is no proper right answer. So you have to brainstorm, you have to come up with new things, and an important aspect of case competitions is to be able to present your solution. So there's no point in brainstorming if you can't convince the other person that your solution is actually viable, your solution is actually good enough to be implemented. So like if even if you don't understand what a case competition is, just try your hands out on this, explore a bit about simple competitions, get to know. So that's all about case competitions, which you'll often see like being shared from Consult Club space. So just to keep you updated about what these are, and of course you can try your hands on anytime and every time you get time or you want to explore this field. So what more? So Consult Club, as I said, is not just about consulting this year. We have also started the management club. So what management is, it's a niche domain like which Shaurya will also cover in the later part of the session today. So one interest doesn't fit all. So the belief has led to so many and so diverse clubs at IIT Bombay. So continuing the culture, Consult Club has also initiated the management related activities, specifically the marketing aspect and the product management aspect. As I said, like you need not go into the depths of this, just to give you the terms right now. So these are marketing management and product management, which Consult Club focuses for now on. And just stay in touch if you are interested or you want to get to know more about these domains. So what Management Club does is the summer boot camps. So we had the marketing boot camp just to give you a hang of and how an how a beginner can approach marketing, or what all it entails. Workshops from industry professionals and insightful sessions, all just to give you an idea about what marketing is. And specifically for product management specific activities, so again we have case solving sessions, career talks. These are like for the senior students, mostly for the senior students, but you too can try out your hands, because at the end of the day all of this is problem solving and brainstorming, so everyone and anyone can benefit from this. Coming to the fun part of the session, so time for the guesstimate solving. So we have an interactive workshop by Ameya Mittal. So I'll hand over to him right now.
Hello everyone, am I audible? Dishank, can you just confirm once?
Yeah, Ameya, you're audible.
Okay, cool. Cool. So right, so now I'll just request control once, so maybe you can just give me control for the presentation.
Yeah, done. Can you
Right.
check?
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Cool. So hi everyone. Good evening. I hope you all are listening. And Dishank, could you just put that like Teams wala window on the top right? So maybe we can see the questions and
Oh,
reactions if
right.
any.
Is it better
Huh.
now? Like I've eliminated that.
Yeah, it's better. It's gone now. Cool.
Okay, sure.
So hi everyone. We'll be doing an interesting guesstimate now. Right. And think enough with the heart reacts now. And yeah, before we start, I would want you to join the menti.com meeting using the code, right? So you can join it on browser as well as on the app. So whichever is comfortable, you can do that, right? And just join using the code. So we'll be solving a guesstimate today, right? And because this session is primarily for the freshies, so this would be a simple case for today, right? Um, okay. So I'll just move to the next slide. So before we start with the guesstimate, right. So firstly, let me just take a minute or two and discuss what exactly is a guesstimate. So guesstimate, right. So for people who don't know what a guesstimate is a combination of these two words, which is a guess and an estimate, right? Now, right. So right, I forgot. Before I start, I'll just introduce myself as well. So I'm Amay Mittal. I'm a fourth year undergraduate. I'm from Mechanical Engineering Department, and in August I'll be joining NRI Consulting, which is a management consulting firm. Right. So I did an internship there, and I got an offer. So I'll be joining them. Um, Now coming back to this session, talking about what a guesstimate is. So guesstimate is basically comprised of two words, a guess and an estimate. So if you make a guess, for example, you can make a guess without any reason, right? So you don't need to give any justification if you're making a guess. So for example, if I say like how many crows are there, like for example, जो बीरबल Akbar and Birbal वाली story थी in which Birbal just guesses at random the number of crows and he says, you can count if you want. That is just a pure guess. He did not make any estimation or he did not give any reason behind that number. An estimate, however, is a proper exact figure, right? So guesstimate is somewhere in between. You're guessing, but you're making an educated guess. So that is what I would call a guesstimate. So today we'll be doing a guesstimate. I will want you all to participate in the same, right? And it'll be a quick short one and hope it is interesting as well. Um, now, now I'll just take you through the steps that we generally follow while solving a guesstimate, right? So there are mainly 5 steps. So the first step is scoping, right? And by scoping, I mean, firstly, you'll have to define what your problem area is, right? So for example, if I give a question, for example, on how many Google searches are conducted, um, or say, let's take a simpler example. How many hours you spent on your laptop, right? In this semester. So for such a question, the scope can be like hours on the laptop throughout the semester for all kinds of activities, or maybe only for academic activities, right? So these two would differ. So this is what we mean by the scope. So firstly, we would want to understand what is the problem, what are we talking about, that is scoping. The second step is then we'll think of an approach. How do we exactly want to solve the problem, right? So for today's case, I'll just help you out with the approach myself. But for guesstimates that you solve later, maybe you can think of some innovative approaches and other approaches that you might want to take. The third step is guessing, right? So we make a guess, but it's an educated guess. It's not like a random guess like Birbal. It's an educated guess, uh, better than just a random number, right? The fourth step is estimating, like doing some calculations based on the guesses. And we'll be doing these steps just after this slide. I'll just start with a case and you'll be doing this yourself. So it will become more clear then. And the fifth and final step is you just confirm your answer once, right? Um, so I'll just show you a guesstimate, a sample guesstimate, and you can participate. So again, I would request you to join using the code which is there at the top of the screen and also in the chat, right? So the code is 8237821. I'll just type it once again in the chat, and you can just join it on menti.com, and we'll be doing the case over there, right? So now moving to the case, I'll just move to the case now, right? And so the case for today is a pretty interesting case actually. So we today have to guesstimate the number of Moodle logins in one particular day, right? Now this seems to be pretty challenging, right? And you will feel ki, yaar, this seems pretty difficult. How can we guess or even estimate or guesstimate this, right? So now, since we have to guesstimate, right, we will have to give some reasons so as to why we have come to that particular number, right? So if suppose you ask me to guess the number of Moodle logins, right, I can say 50,000, I can say 1 lakh, I can say 1,000, I can say 10, I can say anything. That would be a guess, right? But if I have to estimate, then I would probably have to see go to the back end of Moodle, check how many logins are there, etc. Right? I think Tarun has a question. So I will see if I can unmute you. Just a minute. Or maybe you can just put it in the chat if you have any question. Or okay, sure. I'll just unmute you for now. If you have any problems, you can like message Deshank or Isha for now. They are helping out. So if there are any technical problems, you can message them and lower your hand. Or if there are any concept kind of problems or problems in understanding the statement, then that should be clear once we do it, once we do the case, right? And you can ask any questions at the end, right? Um, so uh, so just moving forward, right? So now since we have to guesstimate, uh, so we'll have to think of some logic and get to this number of Moodle logins, right? Now the first step of solving this guesstimate, as we discussed before, is scoping, right? So we'll have to define what is the scope. Now, what do I mean by scope? So because we're looking at, the number of Moodle logins in a day, what do you think could be some important questions that you might want to get answered before you start, right? So if you're on your mobile or if you're on a laptop, you'll just see an open Q&A tab uh, uh, on your phones, right? And you can ask some questions using that. So, for example, one important question could be ki, how are we logging into Moodle, right? How many students in Iitb? That's a good question. That's a good question. So if there are any other questions, you can keep typing them. And at the same time, you will see all the other questions as well. So you can like questions if you want to upvote them, for example, and they will appear at the top, right? Dishank, can you just press on the Q&A question icon at the bottom right, so that all questions are visible? Right. So these are some questions that have come up to now. How many students are there in Iitb? Number of users per 5 minutes. On which day are we considering this guesstimate? Right. So these are all are good questions. These are important questions. So now you will understand, how we are asking some questions to scope the problem. Right. So before we start guesstimating, we have to ask some questions. Key, what exactly is the area or the domain that we are defining, right? So you can ask some questions yourselves. You can like the other questions that you see, and we'll try to answer the top questions, right? And I'll just try to answer as many questions as possible. If there are too many questions, then I'll just answer the questions that are at the top, right? That come to the top, right? So once again, I'll just repeat the case once. So we're looking at the number of Moodle logins in a particular day, right? And the questions are good. So you can start with how many students are there in Iitb. Maybe you can ask what kind of a day are we talking about? What time of the year is it? Are there exams going on? Because exams ke time pe a lot of people would log in, but during normal days, maybe none of you log in. Maybe like 26 January, no one even logs in, something like that, right? So right. So I'll just start answering the questions. And if you want to make note of this information, you can do that, right? Otherwise, I'll just present them on the next slide, so you won't miss out on the scope part, right? So talking about how many students are there in Iitb, right? So IIT Bombay typically has more than 10,000 students, right? But for this question, we are just considering the BTech and the dual degree students, right? So जो भी BTech वाले हैं and the dual degree students, we are just considering them for this. So we just count logins of those students. So the BTech and the dual degree students. So let's say that in the freshie batch there are 1,400 students, right? And counting seniors from all years, that is second, third, fourth, and fifth, there are 4,000 students. Okay. So for this case, let's say there are 1,400 freshies and 4,000 senior students, right? The next question, Dishank, if you could just click on it and it'll come on the screen. The second question, is there any quiz or something like that? Yeah. Yeah. So is there any quiz or assignment to be done on Moodle today? That's a good question again. See, so let's say, that it's the mid-sem week that we are talking about, right? Freshies have a mid-sem exam tomorrow, right? And seniors have an exam every alternate day, right? So not all seniors would have an exam tomorrow. Only half, maybe like only half of them have an exam tomorrow, or maybe slightly more than half of them have an exam tomorrow, right? But let's say the freshies have an exam tomorrow, but seniors have exams only every alternate day, right? So if you want, you can write these things down, or I'll just post these things on the next slide, so you'll be able to see that. Okay. So again, this is a good question, right? We are getting, like, you all are understanding what is to be done here. That is good. Can you just show me the third question, Dishank, if that is possible? Right. So our exams are going on currently. I think I answered that. So yeah, there are midsem. Let's say for this case that there are midsem exams going on, and freshies have an exam tomorrow, and seniors have exams every alternate day, right? So can you just go to the next question as well? Right. So is it a weekday or a weekend? Again, this is a very good question. So, kyunki typically if you're looking at a weekday, then number of logins may be slightly higher, because classes and etc. might be there. Whereas on a weekend, many people might not be studying or logging into Moodle for classes or for downloading lectures, etc. Right. So, for this case, however, this is not relevant because weekday ho ya weekend ho, tomorrow there is an exam, right, for the freshies, and for the seniors it's every alternate day. So let's say it's a weekday for this case. Yeah, cool. Any other questions that we want to take? Let's see, if there are only 13 questions, maybe we can take quite a few of them. Right, so I think I answered this as well. So are we counting repeat logins also? Yes, we are counting repeat logins. That is again a good question. So if someone logs in one time and then he logs in another time for some other reason, we are counting those as well. So we might have multiple logins per student, right? So that's what I think this question is asking, and that is a good question again, right? Cool. So our I hope the freshies are also able to understand, because there are some senior students on this call as well. They might be asking these questions, but I hope the freshies are also understanding. If you're not, you can wait till the end and ask me some questions or any questions that you have. Number of users per 5 minutes is there on Moodle itself, by the way. That's a good point. But since we are making a guesstimate, let's say we don't have this data and we have to guess or make a guesstimate on the number of Moodle users that will be logging in. So let's say we don't have this data of number of users per 5 minutes, right? But this is a good way to go about it. So number of users per 5 minutes, if we know that, we can just multiply it by the number of minutes, like number of 5-minute intervals, and we'll get the number of Moodle logins, right? This is also a very smart way to go about it. Dishank, if we can just take 2-3 more questions quickly. How many courses per student? This is again a very good question. How many courses per student? So let's say that this would have been a very good question, but because of the previous answers, that like freshies have an exam tomorrow and seniors have exams every alternate day. Do the number of courses per student really matter? No, because we already know that there is just one exam for the freshies tomorrow, and maybe like one exam every 2 days for the seniors, right? So the number of courses would have mattered, if you were talking about a general day, but if you're talking about, say, the exams, this would not really matter, right? Cool. ठीक है. So I think you can mark questions as answered as well. मतलब, I'm not sure if I would be able to do them with that, है ना? तो ठीक है. मतलब, I think we have answered quite a few questions. If your question was not asked, it's fine. मतलब कोई problem नहीं है. But you got a sense of what exactly is the first step, right? How many times does an average student upon Moodle? I think that means how many times a student logs into Moodle per day. We that is again a good question. We'll consider that later on in the case, right? So that's a good question. Let's say we don't have any information, you will have to guess that part. Okay. So Dishank, you can just move to the next slide. I'll just move to the next slide here. Cool. So I'll just define the scope for you all, because I had thought about it before giving this case. So let's say that it is a weekday. As there was a question in the slide before, let's say that it is during the midsem exams, as we discussed. You know, let's say the freshies have an exam tomorrow. Seniors have an exam every alternate day. You know, we are considering only BTech and dual degree UG students. So as we discussed, there are 1400 freshies that we are considering, and there are 4000 senior students that we are considering. Okay. And the final thing is that we're counting the logins only made via the browser. This was a question that was missed, or maybe it was lower down in the order, but yeah, we're not considering any app logins or anything like that. Or maybe you can just consider every Moodle login that there is, right? So with this, we get an idea of, what is the scene, matlab when exactly we are counting the number of Moodle logins. And moving on to the next step, which is the approach step, right? So I'll just give you the approach for this case, and because it is meant for the freshies, right? I wanted to keep it a little simple, right? So let's say that the approach for this guesstimate that we'll follow today is that the number of logins is equal to the number of students who are using Moodle on that day into the number of logins per student, right? Now, this would give you the number of logins, right? Because the number of students who will use Moodle on that day and the number of logins per student should give you the number of logins in the entire day, right? And this is the formula that we would be using, or the approach that we would be using to guesstimate the number. Okay. Um, now now to calculate the number of logins, we need two things, right? We need the number of students who will use Moodle on that day and the number of logins per student, right? And number of logins per student was actually asked in one of the questions, so maybe we'll have to guess that, or we'll have to think about that a little. Okay, so we'll have two questions. We have two questions to answer, and now I want you to again log into Menti, open Menti and use that code. And because I would want you to make some guesses for these two numbers that are shown on the screen, right? And so now if you have your Menti open, I'll just move to the next question where we'll start guessing, right? So this is actually a fun step. I'll be giving some hints, and I'll be giving you some help in the guess part, right? So now, uh, first, the first thing that we have to, so I can see your emojis, sorry, the icons. So these are you all, right? And now the first part of the calculation was the number of students who are using Moodle on that day, right? Now for that, I'll just there'll be a question on the screen, and you will have options on your phone, so you can just fill it using your phone, right? So the first question is, what is a good guess for the number of students in an average UG batch, right? So we're talking about only one batch over here, an average UG batch, right? So to help you out for this one, let's say that my UG batch, which is the 40 batch, has 900 people, right? And the freshie batch has 1400 people. So logically, only one option should make sense, right? So I'll just help you out with this question once, right? So please give your votes there on the phone, right? Right. So as we see for this case, like the answer is 1200, right? Because on an average, so this is like a rough average. Right? You may say that actually 1152 hai, like the average is 1152. But let's say because we are doing a guesstimate, we are not exactly estimating, right? But हम लोग guess भी कर रहे हैं साथ में. So we keep it a little flexible. We assume easy numbers, right? So let's say for this case, we take it to be 1200, right? Now I'll move to the next question. I'll help you out only a little, but it will be a little trickier, right? So there's no point system actually. You can answer, take your time and answer it. What is a good guess for the number of freshies who are using Moodle on that day? Now remember that they have an exam tomorrow, right? And also remember that some people might have already downloaded slides beforehand, right? So they might not log in to Moodle on that particular day before the exam. So I can see that 25 people have already voted, 26 out of 38 attendees. So that's good. Most of you are participating. Okay, so all right. So yeah, Matlab, okay. So I have just given the answer based on like what I have assumed, but you could have assumed different things. That's not a problem. So I have considered that because most freshies would have an exam tomorrow, they might be logging into Moodle to check some announcements or maybe their marks or maybe download lecture slides, right? I may be wrong, but you all might be like good students downloading lectures beforehand, etc. So you might not want to log in a day before the exam. But what I had thought about when I had made this question was most people would log in a day before the exam just to see their marks or some important announcement, etc. by the professor, right? So for this, I haven't considered 1400. Let's say we are considering only 1200. Like not everyone, but a significant majority of the people are logging in. Okay. Now I'll just move to the one final question that we have, right? And this is the third question which will answer the number of students who will log into Moodle on that day, right? So the third question is, third and final question is, what is a good guess for the number of seniors who will be using Moodle that day, right? Now this again should be easy because only half of the seniors, have an exam, but we can also count some seniors who might log into Moodle 2 days before the exam, right? So let's say that only half of the seniors have their exam on the next day, and some of them have an exam 2 days later, but they're logging in. So for this, again, I have considered the number 2500 as the right answer. You may disagree. You may say that the number could be 2000, the number could be 1500, the number could be 2300. There is no right way to know, but because we're making a guess, we just simply guess it to be 2500, right? Well, you can make a guess of 2400 as well, not a problem. But I'm just giving an idea of how you go about it, right? So now, considering both the cases where we counted freshies and then we counted seniors as well, right? So the total number of students comes to 3700, right? How do we get to this number? We got to this number by adding 1200 and then 2500, right? So 1200 freshies and 2500 seniors, and we get 3700 students who will be using Moodle on that day, right? So I hope this makes sense till now. I mean, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me at the end. Maybe we can discuss them at the end of the session, etc. But for now, I'll just go with the flow, right? So the next thing in the calculation was number of logins was the number of students using Moodle into the number of logins per student, right? So now we have to count the number of logins per student, and right, and now again uh, you would see you would see blanks on your mobile screen or your laptop screen, right? And you can type things over there, right? So as you type things, they will appear on the screen. Right? And words with most responses would appear bigger, right? So most people are typing slides, which makes sense. Slides, tutorials, lecture slides, video lectures, announcements. This is great, right? Someone wrote gaming. I'm curious, like gaming भी कर सकते हैं क्या Moodle पे? Cool. So right, so we're getting responses. We've got 23 responses till now, and like as you can see, most uses are related to announcements, videos, lecture slides, um, quiz answers, quiz solutions. All right, um, quiz marks. Right, that's also an important use case to know, whether you're passing or not in the course, etc. Probably gets more important when you become senior, right? So now that we have responses from all of you, so these are typically uses that we use Moodle for, right? And let's say that uh, matlab you can assume that a person does all these things in one login itself, but let's say that he uses separate logins for all these things. He does not check his marks the same time he downloads his lecture slides. Maybe he does them in two different login operations, right? Maybe उसका एक time पे time out हो जाता है and he logs in again to see his marks or to see different announcements, right? Maybe download some PDFs, etc. as well, right? So I'll just move to the next slide where we would be assuming since we have these use cases, we would just assume the number of logins or just guess the number of logins per student now, right? And so what I have considered, again, this is something that I have written before this session was done, right? So this may or may not have options that were posted by you to the previous question, right? The first thing that I've written here is downloading lecture slides, which matches actually most of your answers as well. So let's say that a person logs in twice to download lecture slides, right? Let's say that announcements, which is also there in the previous slide, let's say a person logs in once to check some announcements that the professor might have, or maybe like check previous announcements that the professor might have given, right? Um, Another use case I thought of would be, let's say he checks his marks or scores on Moodle, right? A day before the exam or 2 days before the exams. Maybe he checks that, देखेगा कि मेरे को A grade लाने के लिए कितने marks चाहिए, etc., right? Another use case, and I'm surprised that no one mentioned this because we all do this. And if you don't, तुम life में मतलब थोड़ा lose out कर रहे हो. You can also see who else is using Moodle. I mean, this is obviously not like an official use case. This is just for fun, right? I mean, you can see who else is using Moodle. There's in the bottom right corner, and I mean, just for fun, let's say I'm considering that a person logs in twice into Moodle just for this thing, like just to see who else is using Moodle, कौन दोस्त use कर रहा है, कौन कितना मग रहा है. Let's say um, people are logging into Moodle for this, right? So let's say that we consider these use cases, right? On a serious note, we have now considering number of logins per student, right? I think you can add these, right? And you would have that 2 plus 2 plus 2, that would be 6 logins per student, right? And that is what the next slide would say, that let's say that there are, as we discussed, 6 use cases and therefore 6 logins per student, right? Now that we've uh, counted the number of students using Moodle and also the number of logins per student, right? I think now you should be able to estimate or guesstimate with reason the number of Moodle logins in a day, right? And now is the fun part where we estimate, right? And the estimate would come out to be 22,200, right? Number of Moodle logins per day, and this would be based on the guesses that we made, right? 3,700 into 6, and this would give us the number of 22,200, right? You might say that this is low, this is high, this should be 50,000, for example, or any other number, 1,000, for example, right? But based on now, matlab, it's better than a random guess that we would have made in the beginning that would have said maybe 1 lakh Moodle logins in a day, right? Now this seems to be a more educated guess. Like we have some reason why we are saying this, right? Um, this slide is just to show the process that we followed. I'll just quickly go through it again so that जिनको नहीं समझ आया, जो बीच में lose out हो गए, they can understand, right? So to calculate the number of Moodle logins, what we did was number of students logging into Moodle on that day into number of logins per student, right? We considered two types of students, freshies and seniors. Freshies 1,200 out of the 1,400 and seniors 2,500 out of 4,000. And we added them, we got 3,700, right? To calculate number of logins per student, we considered 4 types of use cases. There could have been more. Someone said gaming. अब मुझे तो नहीं पता gaming कर सकते हैं Moodle पे, but that's cool. So like considering these use cases, we are considering that on average there is 6 logins per student, right? And so we come to the final number of 22,200, right? But there is another step in the guesstimate solving process that we talked about, right? And this is typically like an advanced step, but let's say that we want to confirm the answer, right? We want to see ki 22,000, does it even make sense? Is it something like, is it does it make sense, right? So for that, what we will do is, like someone had suggested in the beginning, let's say that we look at the number of logins per 5 minutes, right? So based on what we have found, let's say that we calculate the number of logins for every 5 minutes, right? Let's see if that makes sense, if that is in a range that makes sense, right? So if we assume that there is 18 hours of uniform activity, there is equal distribution of people. The number we get is actually 22,000 divided by 18 take into 60. 18 into 60, yeah, that would come to about 103, right? I mean, like you can do this on your calculator, whatever, but this is what it comes to, right? And once we find this number of 103 for 5 minutes, right? This means ki there are 103 Moodle logins in every 5 minutes. Does it make sense? Yeah, it somewhat makes sense. I mean, if it would have said that 1,000 people are logging in every 5 minutes, then it would have been a little dicey. Like we would have been like कि टोटल बच्चे 4,000 5,000 हैं, उनमें से 1,000 बच्चे हर 5 मिनट पे लॉग इन कर रहे हैं. Like every 5 minutes there are 1,000 people on Moodle. Seems a little odd, right? If you would have said something like 10, right, that would have again been dicey, right? I mean, only 10 people using Moodle out of 4,000 people who have an exam tomorrow in 5 minutes. I mean, 10 seems to be more like logical than 1,000, right? But 100 seems to be like a very good number. Like, well, it may not be right. You can check your Moodle. You will typically find 250 to 300 people using Moodle on an average day. On an exam day, I haven't really checked because I mean, I haven't really done that. But you can check that during an exam day. You can find what number it is, etc. So let's say that this 103 number makes sense. We've done a good job with the guesstimate, and with coming to the number of 22,000, I think it makes sense now because we have also sort of confirmed it using another method, right? So this was about the guesstimate. I hope you all liked it. Took us less time for doing like guesstimates in general. They are a little more detailed than this. This was a very this was sort of a simple example. We did not consider many details, etc. in this, but it was a good example nonetheless. So hope you all liked it. If you have any questions or any comments or anything that you have a doubt in, etc., you can just ping me on Messenger, or maybe I'll just wait after the session. You can ask me anything. और मे बी यू कैन जस्ट मैसेज मी, मतलब मेरे नाम के ऊपर हवर करोगे तो वो मैसेज वाला आ जाएगा, तो उसमें डाल दो. आई विल रिप्लाई टू यू ऑल. So this is it. So that's how we solve the guesstimate. Hope you liked it, and over to Dishank or Isha.
So guys, we'll move over to the management section now. So as Dishank said in the beginning about various domains that come under management, we have a senior with us who is going to tell you specifically about product management, which is a very booming and interesting field since last 2-3 years. So over to you, Shaurya.
Yeah, thank you, Isha. So if you could just bring over the slides, we can get started. I think Amya and the Consult Club has, fabulously done a job of explaining what consulting is and how consultants work and what kind of skills are important for consulting as such. So for this part, I'll be taking a much more fundamental approach of actually trying to tell you what product management is, what product managers do, because it's still a thing that not everyone is clear about. So and we look at a few of the skill sets that product managers need to actually possess, and what it's all about, or what is the hype about. So if you could just move to the next slide. So hi guys, I'm Shaurya. I'm a 5th year dual degree student. I am an incoming associate product manager at Flipkart. I'll be joining in May this year itself. So just move over to the next slide. So yeah, so the first part that we're looking to cover through this is basically what product management is, and is it something that you might be interested in. So the next slide. Yeah. So this is one of the quotes that I think does do some justice to the hype that is around product management right now. So this is something that I saw on Twitter. So product management is the new investment banking. So if you think about investment banking and the boom that you had in everyone trying to be an investment banker in the late 2000s, in terms of the kind of money that they were making, in terms of the kind of flashy jobs that they had, the flashy lifestyles that they had, I think that's particularly switching over to product management now, particularly in tech hubs. So it's from San Francisco in this case. So if we just move over to the next slide, we can discuss this a bit more there. So, OK, first things first, does anyone have any clue what is this graph that you can see below? So has anyone ever used this? Does anyone know what this is? If you could just type out in the conversation, if anyone has any ideas what this is. Correct, Aaron, that's correct. This is Google Trends. So it's a cool thing. If none of you have used it before, just Google it up. It's Google Trends. It gives you insights into the usage or the popularity of various terms that have been across years with respect to the Google searches that have happened around these terms. So this is something that I pulled off from Google Trends, and if you look at this, you can particularly see that product management has been picking up a lot in the past, say 6 to 7 years. So it's almost the interest in the term has gone doubled in the past 6 or 7 years. And the core that we saw before, basically, investment bankers and management consultants, these had their interests in the past days, but their heyday has gone a bit back now, and product management is the the field that's really booming right now. So, and again, the interest is majorly concentrated in tech hubs like California, Massachusetts. So this is for the US and San Francisco, as you can think of. So if you could just move over to the next slide. So this was a bit about how, how exactly is the field booming right now. So this is a little exercise, to actually see what you do know about PMing. So these are, I think, all of you must have seen Money Heist, probably. So these are the three major characters that are there. So the first one is Berlin, the second one is the professor, the third one is Nairobi. So anyone has any idea about PMing, just try and tell me, what do you think is the closest job that a PM does with respect to Money Heist, what these people do in their respective roles? Yeah, guys, keep bringing in the answers. Professor, okay. Okay, there's another like on this. So nobody thinks it's Nairobi or Berlin. You do realize that Berlin is actually the operational leader in Money Heist, right? So don't you think maybe he can be what exactly a PM should be doing? Okay, you haven't seen it. Okay, that's all right. So anybody who has seen it. Okay. Okay. Okay, nobody has seen it. Okay, so people that haven't seen it, I'll just give you a brief about what the characters are. So Berlin is like the operational head that's there in the bank, and he looks over all the people that are given specific jobs in the bank robbery. Professor is like the mastermind that's supposed to plan out the strategy for the whole of the bank robbery and figure out what's going to happen when. And Nairobi is the one that's actually, tasked with printing the money in the bank. And she's like, she's on a deadline to print this much money, this much amount of time, and she takes care of the operational part of, the whole heist. Yeah, you shouldn't have missed it. So, okay. So we have got only one answer, Professor, and 4 likes on that. But sadly, that's not true. So a PM is actually all three of them. So a PM also dons all three hats. If you think Professor, you might have taken the hint that he's actually tasked with forming the strategy around products and various things. How the product is supposed to be implemented, where is it supposed to be launched, what kind of people is it supposed to be pushed towards. So that is exactly the kind of things that Professor would have focused on. That is what a PM does too. But that's just one hat that he dons. The second one, if you think about Nairobi, Nairobi is a person that's supposed to meet all these deadlines that are there with printing the money and keeping everything, the whole heist on track, right? So that is also what a PM does. So say there's a new product launch that's upcoming right now, and the PM is supposed to keep track of the engineers, the UX designers, and the business people, and keep them all on track with respect to the timelines that the product launch is supposed to happen in. And if you think about Berlin, Berlin is the one that's coordinating all of them, right? So that is something that the PM does too. So the PM is supposed to lead somewhat the product development in itself. He's supposed to bring in all the teams that are essential to the product being developed in a successful way and coordinate amongst them, and in some aspects lead them to. So I think that should give you a fair enough idea of what kind of work does a PM do. So we just move over to the next slide now, Isha. Yeah, so on the left, the figure that you see, this is one of the most used figures that you would see to actually try and figure out what product management is. And it somewhat does justice to what product management is. So if you think about a digital product, say Flipkart for that matter. So Flipkart would have a UX team, a tech team that actually codes all of the backend for the Flipkart, and the business team that is actually supposed to develop the business, set up relations with the sellers, try and figure out how you can reach maximum customers, those kinds of things. So all these three teams, if you think about the intersection of these three teams, that is exactly what a product manager would be. So he's supposed to don all three hats of these. So simplest depiction, a key term that you would see a lot around being used would be a cross-functional role. What that means is basically, as we discussed before, Nairobi professor and Berlin. So he had to, if you were a PM, you'd have to don all three of these hats, right? So cross-functional role basically means whatever the product demands you to do, that is what you're going to be doing. If it demands some legal aspect, PM is a coordinator, isn't it? In some aspects, yes, he is a coordinator, but a coordinator is just someone that coordinates amongst people. PM is also responsible for the product as a whole. We'll touch upon what this exactly means too. So cross-functional role, as I was saying, means that any and every aspect of the product, say, be it legal or artistic viewpoints of the product or something like that. So whatever viewpoints that are there, you have to be responsible for those, and you need to figure out how that can be done in a perfect way. So that also does bring in an imposter syndrome in the early parts. Prajwal, I'll just get back to you in a minute. What imposter syndrome here means is basically because you're working with people that are very talented in their own fields, say engineers that are best in their field, UX designers that have graduated from the best designing colleges in India, and business people that actually take on great business decisions and are actually driving the business altogether and have MBAs from Ivy League colleges or something. So you're supposed to coordinate in some sense amongst all these people, and these are people that are very good in their own fields, and that does bring somewhat of an imposter syndrome, exactly what you're doing and why you're working with people that are better than you, and you don't actually get a lot of sense what you're exactly supposed to be doing in these. So okay, Prajwal has a question here. I mean, interlinked, he needs his info from each department from him to actually work. Correct, Prajwal, that is true. So a product manager, that's a fundamental thing for product management is you're not responsible for the most of the work that you need to get done. So it's not something that you are going to sit down and build the tech backend for the platforms, or you're not going to sit down and build the UX for the platform. You're not going to be making the business decisions as such, though you'll have a say in them. So he does need to coordinate amongst each of these departments in some sense. But yes, the major highlights, if you think about product management, is would be strategy around the product, how it's going to be launched, where it should be launched, and what kind of people is it supposed to cater to, the timelines that are supposed to be maintained for the product launches and the product maintenance, and evaluating ideas for what kind of things that you can bring into products as a whole, and what kind of new things that you can push into products, and prioritizing features. Basically, say there's one feature that you can roll out right now with your tech team taking 2 months to build it, and there's another feature, which one do you roll out first? So that these are some parts of the aspects of the job that a product manager does take up. So if we move to the next slide, please. Yesha, are you there?
Hi, I'll just check. I guess there's some network issue. Is it changed now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed now. So if you need to figure out if it's actually something that you want to be doing, I think these are fundamental questions that you should be asking yourself as to if these are things that you want to do and these are things that excite you in some way. So if you think about, if you like to build new products or new things that are consumer focused, then this field might be something that you might be interested in. If you like a variety of challenges, as I said before, you need to don a lot of hats when you're dealing with this field, and you need to figure out a lot of things that you might not know, and you need to be a quick learner in that aspect. So are you flexible to do what it takes? Again, you need to be a quick learner in fields that you're not particularly familiar with, and you need to learn quickly and get up to speed with people, and actually be knowledgeable enough to talk these people out and not look like a dumb vet in front of them. And can you work well with a variety of people? As we've already covered, most of the work that you get done is not something that you're going to do on your own self. You're responsible for that work, but you can't do it on your own. So you need to be able to deal with a lot of people and at the same time lead, if it does come to that, a lot of people to get products built and on deadlines. And the last one would be, this is not particularly true for all PMs, but most of the product managers that you would see would be working in consumer tech. So consumer tech would be firms like, say, Google, Facebook, Netflix, or something like that, Amazon. So if consumer tech working in that particular part and focusing on the consumer part of it is something that really excites you, I think this field might be something that might be good for you. So if you could move to the next slide. Yeah. So coming back to skills for the job. So, for consulting, we saw it's problem solving and critical thinking and analytical thinking and all of that. The job that a product manager does, it's somewhat coinciding with a consultant in some aspect in terms of, he does take some care of the business aspects of the product or the firm too. But if we talk about the skills for this particular job, I think if we rate it down the list, I think the first one would be product sense. So product sense is something on the lines of, say, business acumen for products. So, you look at something and that, okay, this is something that the consumers might like, and this is something that the consumers might not like. This is something that will work with my customers, and this is something that will not be useful to my customers. So that kind of an intuitive sense of how your customers think and how your product will favor your customers and how they'll react to it. That is kind of what product sense means in this aspect. Problem solving, again, this is something that coincides with consulting as such. So product managers in their day-to-day life encounter a lot of problems. Say you're a product manager at Facebook and you see the engagement going down in a day. So at that time, you can't call in a consultant and rule out $1 million project. Say solve this engagement problem for us. You need to be a good problem solver in your day-to-day aspect and try and figure out why exactly things are happening the way that they're happening. UI UX would also be a skill in this case. So not particularly designing as such, but what looks good, what does not look good, what's user friendly, what's not user friendly, and what will make the user cognitively, make it cognitively easy to use my application or my product for the user. The next aspect is technical. Technical, but not coding in this case. So for being a product manager, you don't need to actually code. So as we talked about before, you have engineers, teams of engineers working with you on the product. So coding is not one aspect that you're supposed to know, but still in terms of technical aspects, you should know how technology works, say how the internet works, how Google searches actually work, how does Google, search in less than a second everything that you type out and give all these pages all together. So those kinds of aspects you are supposed to know because you're working with highly talented working in consumer tech. So you would sound dumb if you don't know that altogether. And it's something that helps you in the work in designing better products too. Data crunching, again, it's somewhat related to problem solving, but in some sense strategy too. So you should be good with data. You should be able to manipulate it in a way that gives you the insights that you were looking for, and that is also one aspect of skills that you should have. In terms of soft skills, I think we've covered people skills before. So you're working with a lot of teams and you need to be able to communicate well with these teams too. That's where the second skill also comes in. And not create an hostile environment amongst your teams and actually coordinate well amongst them. Empathy in terms of users is also really important in this case. I would rank this probably upper in the soft skills segment. Empathy in terms of how your consumers think, and can you step into the consumer's shoes when needed and actually think from their perspective and figure out what they would want. I think that's a fundamental skill that a product manager does require to build great products throughout his career. So the next slide. Yesha. Yeah. So now let's get to the fun part. That was all the sermon that I had. So I want you to all work on this and type out all things that you can figure out in this. So product sense, as we already discussed, it's kind of like the business acumen that you have for products in some way, right? So if you could move to the next slide. Yesha. Yeah. So we have 3 products here. I'm pretty sure that we won't get never saw money heist here again. I think everybody knows about Netflix, Amazon, and Zomato. These are the 3 most popular products that you might have used in the lockdown or something. So now let's try and answer these. Just use the chat box and let's try and figure out Netflix. What is it exactly? If you could just type it out in the message box. OTT, correct. Could you type the full form and what exactly does over the top mean? Why is it called over the top as such too? What does it mean? Correct. It's also a production house. It's a streaming service that's on the lines of OTT. Yeah, so I think Bhargav covered an important point that most of us do forget. It's not only an OTT service; it's also a production house in itself. Netflix does produce originals of its own, and thus, we need to take that into account too when we're talking about products. So, what is exactly Amazon? This is an easy one, I think. Type it out, guys. Yep, e-commerce, correct. Logistics, correct. Okay, if these are the only definitions that you had, how would Amazon build Amazon Echo or any other tech products that they do build? Amazon has Amazon Web Services too, right? Manufacturing is also one part of them, yes. Yeah, so Amazon is such a big firm. I think it's pretty, yeah, online payment. It's an ecosystem, correct. All of these are great answers. Streaming also, yeah, correct. It's a super app, yeah. You can say that. Yeah, so I would rather classify it as a tech giant as such. It's something that's basically all its business do revolve around tech as such. Super apps are something else. Super app is basically on one app where you can access anything. So Amazon Web Services is not available on the Amazon app, right, Bhargav? So you cannot call it a super app as such. So it's a tech giant. It's not exactly, it has a lot of businesses altogether. If you're talking about Amazon commerce, you think Amazon e-commerce. E-commerce or manufacturing or logistics would be the correct answers in that case. What is Zomato? Yeah, I think WeChat is a super app. Correct. That's correct, Aditya. Food delivery app. Okay. What about, say, Zomato Gold? It's closed now, I think, but how would a food delivery app have Zomato Gold? Reviews, yeah. That's how actually Zomato started, guys. They were a review platform. Logistics, correct. Yes, and for booking tables, correct. Yeah. So, yeah. So the thing that you had to realize here is that all of these products are actually a mixture of a lot of products in itself. These are not simple. When we say Amazon, we usually end up thinking e-commerce. When we say Zomato, we usually end up thinking food delivery as such. But these products have really built out themselves and they've branched out into different things, and they bring a lot more sub products under their own categories, and these are brands actually altogether, right? Yeah. So it's food, groceries, and restaurants. Yep, correct. So let's move over to the next part. These are some great answers that you all gave. The competition. What do you think would be the direct competitors for Netflix? Are pretty obvious, all the other OTT services. What would be the indirect competition for Netflix? No, so Aditya, it's not about the profits, right? It's correct. You're correct in that assumption that AWS does produce a lot of profits for Amazon. But in terms of I think in terms of revenue, Amazon e-commerce would comprise a heavy load of it in terms of the cash flows that they have. Production houses and theaters for Netflix. Correct. Television can be, yes, it can be an indirect competitor for Netflix. Prime Hotstar are direct competitors. YouTube is an OTT service. You can club it. It's somewhere in the gray area, actually. It can be clubbed as a direct competitor, it can be clubbed as an indirect competitor, because Netflix basically deals in shows and YouTube kind of deals in, consumer generated content towards that particular area. It kind of tends. YouTube does have YouTube Red and all, but basically it's kind of that. Yep. So I think indirect competitors for Netflix we've mostly covered. Somebody greatly pointed out that other movie industries, smaller ones that are production houses, might also be a competitor for Netflix as such. Television is a great indirect competitor for Netflix. Yep. So let's move over to Amazon now. Direct SaaS for Amazon. Flipkart is a direct competitor, yes. For Amazon, local stores, correct. Shops are an indirect competitor. Local retailers are an indirect competitor. Correct. Correct. Okay, I think Amazon one is pretty easy in terms of the indirect. Yeah, Azure, if you're talking about AWS, I think that would be the case. To an extent, Google too. Aditya, why would you say that? Wholesale shops, correct. That's an indirect competitor. Oh, Alexa versus Google Home. Yeah. So there's another angle to that. A lot of people would have taken that angle maybe, because you buy a lot of stuff out of Amazon. Amazon does know about a lot of your buying patterns, and so does Google. So they might be an indirect competitor in that aspect in terms of your buying patterns and in terms of advertisements that they push out to you. Yeah, correct. So I think these are some great answers that we got. Now let's switch over to Zomato. The indirect competitors that you think are there for Zomato. Direct competitors, again, Swiggy is a direct competitor. Street food. So Satvik, Zomato does not produce its own food, right? So why would street food be an indirect competitor or a competitor in any aspect of Zomato? Delivery offered by restaurants, correct. So if you call up Domino's directly and order from them, Zomato does not get a cut out of that. So that would be an indirect competitor. Kirane ki dukan. Okay, that's one angle. Mumbai Dabba Walas, that's a great answer. Yeah, restaurant's own delivery would be a Zomato competitor, yes. Indirect competitor. Delivery. Okay, I'm not particularly sure if this might turn out to be an indirect competitor in the future aspect. Say Zomato, turns out to launch its hyperlocal delivery services on the lines of what Dunzo does then delivery might be an indirect competitor, but I don't think it's, yeah, Dunzo is a direct competitor, more or less. Delivery might be an indirect competitor in that case. Okay, Zomato's biggest enemy is hot and quickly delivered food. Okay, these are some great answers again. Uber Eats was, yes, Zomato has acquired that. Home cooked food is, yeah, that's a good answer for indirect competitor for Zomato. Yeah. So now let's get to the next question. So why does it work? Why do these products work in the current day and form? Why does Netflix work? Also, I'm not looking for features here. I'm looking for more fundamental answers. Good quality shows, correct. Chilling. Ad-free is one added benefit. I don't think it's fundamental to what Netflix does, right? Why does Netflix work and not maybe say Prime Video or something then? Everyone needs primary source of entertainment. Yes, entertainment is the primary source, right? But why Netflix for that? Infinite content. Large collection. Okay, these are good answers. Time saving, I'm not particularly sure why you would write that. Good collection of content. So yeah, I think we all agree here that content is one of the major powers behind Netflix, right? But think of Netflix when it started out. Did Netflix have good content then? Did it have infinite content then? Why did Netflix work when it did start? Can watch anytime. That's a very close answer to something that I was looking for. Marketing, comfort of home. Aditya, that's bang on. Convenience is what I was looking for. Convenience is why Netflix works. Yes, freedom to choose anything from the content at any point of time. Exactly, it's basically convenience, right? That we're talking about. Everyone is saying the same thing. Basically, it's convenience that we're talking about here, right? So convenience to watch it at your home, your own control, and good content is something that came into the later phases of Netflix. That's what made it great towards the later phases. But convenience of what Netflix did, Blockbuster basically did before was they sent out DVDs to everyone's home, right? But when you have an over-the-top subscription service, you can your users can immediately watch a movie at the comfort of their home whenever they want to start watching that movie, right? So convenience was the fundamental thing that made Netflix work in its earlier days. Right now, I would agree to that content is the basic backbone which makes Netflix works these days. So Amazon, why does it work? That's not too good, Ashit. Ordering from home. We're talking about Amazon here, guys, not Zomato. Laziness. That's incorrect. To a degree, it's convenience in some sense, but I look for more answers this time. Basically, convenience was what started Amazon. Quality compromise for cost. Time saving is one of the features of Amazon. There are other e-commerce platforms, Flipkart in itself, that does deliver a lot later than Amazon, and still people buy from it, right? Customer service, it's pretty close. Comparability of prices, I think that's one great answer. I think bringing in an e-commerce platform, it does bring a lot of traders all together onto the platform, and it gives consumer the power to actually go for the better quality and the lower price good, right? So that's one great answer. Variety of products, correct. That's a good answer too. The number of options, yeah. Variety of products, those are good answers. Don't you think Amazon reviews is also something that's fundamental to making Amazon work? When you have 100 people that have already reviewed that versus you go to a local shop and you buy. Yeah, Tarun, I'm not here to defend Flipkart. Sorry for that. Trust, yes. Also, I don't read reviews. Okay, most of us, I think, do before buying products. They see the ratings that have been made about the products, or what if the earlier users said about these products. So, so I think that's one very big feature of it. Basically, you have given the consumers the power back of buying things. Yeah, I'd agree, Mihir. A lot of them are scam on Amazon these days, but you can find genuine reviews too if you look hard enough. Customer friendly policies, yeah, I think we've already covered this. The customer services that Amazon has is pretty much fabulous, and that's one very good aspect of why it works. I think we'll move over to the next one now. Why does Zomato work? Yeah, Mihir, I think you're bang on with that. Fake reviews is a very big problem right now, but you can still, actually, if you look hard enough, you'll find products. You should look at the negative reviews possibly, and or if people are just ranting, that might be, just rant. And if they're giving genuine advices on that product, that might be a good review as such. Okay, so Zomato, lazy is correct. Again, this is something that you'll find most of the consumer tech as such. Lazy or convenience. Convenience is the pivotal thing that does make a lot of apps stick. Online reviews, correct. That's also a good answer here. You can order things that you're not available near to you. Yep. Can see the menu. I think that's correct. Large number of options, yeah. Distance no longer matters. Gold membership. Gold membership is a feature. It's not why Zomato works, right? And I think Zomato majorly would get its revenue from orders and not from gold memberships, because that's like an exclusive club altogether. Price and quality comparison. Yeah, price is still debatable in some sense, because it's because of the the discounting wars that are prominent in this particular industry. That's why the prices are low. Zomato works because Amazon does not deliver food yet. Yeah, again, prices and offers, these are not the products in itself. That's just a marketing strategy. That's how the product is being sold to the customers right now. It's something that's inherent to the industry as such, and that's not something that makes the product tick, right? That's not why people use it. Yeah, it's connection with multiple vendors. Yeah, so I think we've covered a lot of these points. It's majorly towards convenience. You can order from your home. You can see the menu if you want to. You have n number of restaurants available, and pricing in some senses, also lower in that case. I found that these companies are usually targeted at convenience and customer satisfaction. Correct, Aditya. That's how you get customers to come back and back and back to you, right? Convenience and customer satisfaction are the keys. These are not one sell firms as such. Most of the consumer tech companies are not, and thus they would target this particular thing, right? Yeah. So I think great answers again. Zomato, more of solving daily problems that no one faced before the options arrived. Yeah, so that's kind of what the consumer behavior actually tends to once you have a product in the market, and it's not that there wasn't a problem before. It's that the problem has been created now because you cannot live without something that you had before, right? Something that you've been given. So yes, you're correct in that. A lot of these, consumer tech firms have an engagement metric, quote unquote. So that kind of measures, how much time you're spending on the platform, how many times you're coming back, even if you're not buying or doing any transactions. So that's a fair point to note down here. So let's just move over to the next part. So for who are these services meant for? What I don't want you to give is demographics. Okay, it's for a 16-year-old kid that's sitting in his room, Netflix. Yeah, so that's not a good answer, Mihir. That's something that I probably thought that people were going to give him, and that's not something that you should give, because again, it's a product manager's job to actually know what kind of customers are there with him, right? So there might be n types of customers that you can classify into, but who's your main customer? That's what I'm looking for right here. So what kind of person would be using Netflix? Millennials, the younger generation, mostly urban. That's kind of true. Netflix does not have any penetration in the rural areas in India. It's costly in India, so okay. The younger generation, mostly urban, that has the money to buy Netflix. That's the kind of person that you would typically see, using Netflix as such in India. I think we can all agree on that. Wow. Yeah, I think the subscription fee is a pretty big pain in the ass for everyone here. Bezos. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. Who do you think Amazon uses Amazon the most? Come on, guys, these are pretty simple ones. Those who can get EMI easily. That's one target group. Okay, if you're buying something costly, say 20,000 upwards or something, you might try and get an EMI on that. For who does not have time to shop physically, that's one angle at it. That is truly one customer base that would exist on Amazon, but I don't think that's the only kind of person that would be shopping on Amazon. Neither the major demographic. Aditya, okay, that's debatable. Rural and older generation, actually, Amazon's penetration into that, it's pretty bleak. Its competitor Flipkart does have much more penetration into those areas. Amazon is basically used in mostly in metro cities because, yeah. So because a lot of these metro cities, Amazon has built very great logistic services, and they have a tremendously low amount of delivery time in these cities, and that's kind of the major areas where Amazon does shine in India. So let's just finish this up pretty quickly. I think we're running out of time. So I'll just extend a bit more, Yesha, if that's comfortable with you guys, right?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Cool. So Zomato, who do you think uses Zomato in this case? It's kind of the same demographic, right? It's an urban millennial or a recently married couple who do not want to cook or something like that, right? Let's get on to the more interesting questions now. People who don't have time to cook, yeah. So that will be a young college going kid, or someone that's just been married and does not have the time to cook right now at his home. Bachelors, yeah, bachelors is one big segment too. So how has the pandemic impacted Netflix? Have you seen any changes that have been made to the app, or anything in particular that hugely boosted Netflix profits? Okay. Anything else that you right now I want a much in terms of the product and in terms of the business aspects too. What do you think the business might have been impacted by? Because this is one part of the product manager's job too, right? He's supposed to build out strategies for the products. So how do you think the business might have been impacted, or the product might have changed in response to the pandemic? Increased consumption of content plus new users. Consumption of content surely has gone up. New users, actually, that's kind of debatable. They came up with a new 200 rupees mobile plan. That was a more or less a flop in India. No new contents were released. Correct me. That is something that I was looking for too. The production part of Netflix did come to a very long halt during the pandemic. That's also coincidentally why their profits went up. If someone was, yep. So Aditya said profits, right? So that's why the profits went up, actually, because they were not producing any of their own content and they were still selling subscriptions. So they actually showed a very good positive response in their profits. If you would have noted that with them, I don't know if you did. Though new work would have slowed down as newer shows and movies would not have been made. Yeah, so production halted. More expectation from users. Why would that be related to the pandemic, Arya? Yeah, Prajwal, that's a great point. Netflix has made advances in the aspect of gaining over the movie theater experience. These there's that Netflix watch thing where you can watch movies with your friends while hanging out with them. So I think that's a great point that's been made here. Yep, Aditya. That's the point. The costs went down, and that's why the profits went up tremendously. Stream fest to attract. Yeah. Aaron, that happened too. Yeah. So Amazon, how do you think the pandemic impacted Amazon, both from a product viewpoint and a business viewpoint? After the lockdown, I'm not talking about particularly the lockdown, say post lockdown period where the lockdowns were opened up and e-commerce was allowed to happen. Positively, yes. Aaron, that's kind of what I was looking for too. That is something interesting did happen in this space. People were expecting e-commerce to boom out of this world when the lockdowns hit, and people thought it's going to grow by 20% at least, and it's only about 3-4% increase in the amounts of orders that it were actually delivering to people. So any guesses why that might have happened, even though people were stockpiling on a lot of stuff after the lockdown period and in the early pandemic periods? Amazon would have dipped, yes. So warehouses were shut because the lack of stocks to deliver. No, so they did have stocks, they did have warehouses, and all of that was functioning. Still, the growth that they were expecting out of this particular thing did not actually boom out of that. Economy might be a factor, but I think there was a research into this, and the major factor that was seen was basically people were not, actually comfortable enough ordering e-commerce, and they actually switched back to their local Kiryana shops and their local shops for a lot of things because they thought that these options were much safer in the pandemic, as these were people that they knew and they would take a lot of trust in these people and buying from these people, that they would take precautions in the products that they were selling them. So the Kiryanas made a comeback into the post lockdown period, and that's that's actually what happened. Yeah. So let's just wrap this up quickly. So one improvement you would do to Netflix. Any ideas, guys? Anything that you can think of right now? Most Dreamfest. Subscription price is a business goal again. It's not something that the product manager would particularly be able to push towards. Party mode to watch with friends. That's a good idea. Okay, these are business aspects. The product as such, what would you make a change to Netflix if you could? Where do you think the product is lacking right now? Legal issues. Yes, Isha, those are there. Yep. So Prajwal, Netflix does have a very good profile on you. What kind of content do you like? Age group के हिसाब से content का suggestion is it's low key what they're doing. They do it on a very larger scale than this. Try to come up with more and more local original content. That's again a business strategy, although it might not be the best one. Add a want on Netflix list. I'm sure a lot of people would want that. Recommendations tab. Nice. Yep. So that does exist right now, Aditya, too. Right? So you can buy a 4-member subscription on Netflix. Think in terms of the product. Yep. So these are all mostly business related, suggestions. Not allow logging in onto many screens from our account. That's one problem that they do face a lot. They're still figuring it out how they can do that. Cable TV is something that they ran away from, Aditya. Why would they try and enter that again? Yep. So making more regional content of good quality like the Hollywood. Correct. So these are some great answers, I think. You guys are on the right track with this. So maybe let's look over to Zomato now. So if you were a product manager at Zomato, what would be the one improvement that you made to Zomato? Come on, guys. Shoot. Try to cover all the restaurants in a city, right? I'm talking about the product here, Aditya, as such. So these are maybe issues that are related with the business development team and all. So obviously it's a much more better aspect if they could cover all the restaurants in the city. Newsletter of best dishes nearby. Mihir, I think that's a great idea. To see what friends are ordering could be interesting. And that's a great idea again. Probably ordering might become a social thing looking into the future, where you can actually interact with your friends and try and figure out what they have ordered. They can send you over suggestions of things that they liked, like you send over songs from Spotify, maybe. That would be a really cool idea. Tourist mode. Prajwal, that's a great idea. Again, I encounter this problem a lot when I'm going to new cities. I want to eat the local delicacies and the shops that have been famous for a while, and I actually have to Google them up. So tourist mode is a great idea again. Okay, so business improvement is in terms of product. When you think of Zomato as a product, think of it as an app. Think of the kind of features that it has right now. Business improvement would be in terms of if it had more restaurants on it, right? If it had better delivery times on it, if the prices were cheaper. So these are business related problems that are there. Product related problems would be in terms of how you can get the consumers to be satisfied with the app or the whole experience of using Zomato as such. Realistic pictures of dishes. Creating a database for all the consumers so that better recommendations. I think they would be doing that on the back end, Aditya. Okay, I think we can wrap this up. Those were some really great answers. I've gotten a lot of insights from you guys. I think there've been some answers that I've never thought of before. They were really creative. Yep. So veg, non-veg. I think there's a scroll bar there which you can tap on basically to get to the veg and the non-veg section differently. I think that's included in the product right now. Yeah. So I think these are some great answers. I think all of you did really well in this exercise. So I think Isha, you can take over from this part. I think I'll be wrapping up with my thing. Mangalwar ka vrat.
Okay, should I take over?
Yeah, you can take over. I think, yeah, I think I'm done.
Oh, okay. So I just, Isha, can you move the slide? Yeah. So yeah. So was it for the case study? Was there something?
No. We can skip that part for now.
Okay. So yeah, so pretty good like session. So first of all, thank you, Shaurya, and Ameya, I guess, has left. He had some work. So first of all, thank you for taking this session. And even if you guys like got to learn a little bit or howsoever like how much you got to learn, so take this as just as a first step of exploring. So do not think like in the career perspective for now, all you've got to do is just explore different clubs at IIT Bombay. So this session was also meant for that, to help you give just a head start, because as you know that as you know about the learning curve, so you can like succeed in a field if you've got a little bit idea, and it's pretty tough to start from scratch. So this was just to give you a brief idea about how things are out there and what different things can you explore at IIT Bombay. So take this as that session. And even if you have any doubts regarding the session, you can ping the speakers or you can ping us. So we have given you our contacts, and we'll be providing all such opportunities which I've mentioned, and regarding the competitions, more such sessions, and all of those will be conveyed to you through the GPO, as well as our Facebook pages, and there's a WhatsApp group as well. So do join that for all the updates. And we'll soon have a great session, because this was more related to product management. As we said that for management, Consult Club is taking up marketing and product management in detail. So we'll be soon having a marketing session for you guys, followed by a very interesting competition in which you'll have to team up and present something. So look out for that on our social media handles. And thank you all for joining. I hope you got to learn a lot from this.
Yeah, so Dishank, I'll just take over for a second. So guys, I purposefully